There we go. Right, so big dogs versus little dogs. So me and Tasha have got very different breeds. So I've got tiny dogs and she's got big dogs. So we've got two sides of the coin, so to speak. Do you want to go first, Tasha?
Um,
Introduce your breeds.
yeah, so I'm Tasha. I run Miyagi's dog training and behaviour services in Lincolnshire. I won't bore you with all my credentials and whatever, because be here all day. So I've got three wolf dogs, Coda, Django, and Zombie, and then I've got a spaniel mix as well called Diesel.
Brilliant. So I'm Natalie. I'm in Leeds. I run NK9 dog training. I've got 15 dogs. I've got 13 chihuahuas, one chalky, and I've recently got a Frenchie who was a rescue, who's now staying. So we've both got both sides of the sort of what it's like to have big dogs and little dogs, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Both have positives and both have negatives, so to speak, don't they, to be fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've personally faced a lot of problems with having small dogs, especially with people thinking that they can't do things that bigger dogs can do. And it's been quite upsetting at times because I felt like I can't do certain activities or can't take part in certain things because my dogs won't look like they're capable, or somebody might make a comment, because I've had people make comments in the past. So whatever breed you've got, you want to show you that you're more than capable of doing anything with them.
You needed a lot of support though, didn't you? Because
Yeah.
you wouldn't, well, you didn't walk them, you wouldn't do tricks with them, you wouldn't do canine conditioning, you wouldn't do parkour, you literally wouldn't do anything with them at all, would you?
No. No, it was really hard because I'd been to certain courses, and especially when I started dog training, I went on courses and everybody had medium to large dogs. And I was the only person with tiny dogs, and people didn't really get that, or they're not really trainable, they're just handbag dogs, ankle biters. Why would you want them? And that was really hard because I love little dogs. I think they're fabulous. And over the last year or so, 2 years, they've done everything. They've all done the trick dog titles, haven't they? They've all done parkour, they've done hoopers, they've done agility stuff, they've done everything that you'd expect of a dog. So there's no restrictions in regards to what activities you can do. It's just about embracing it. You've had similar things, haven't you, Tasha, with having the wolf dogs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because people think, oh, it's a big dog and it's a wolf dog, so they're mean, or they're going to be aggressive, and it's complete opposite. They're aloof, shy, and you found that out when
Yeah.
you came here, and you couldn't believe how like standoffish they are,
Yeah.
and really polite as well. They
Yeah.
don't like pounce on you or anything like that. Whereas Diesel's really outgoing, wants to be everyone's friend. So yeah, people just judge based on the media and what the media say. And then you've had like clients say, "How can you train dogs? You only train 2 hours."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So for anybody who's got a small dog that's a dog trainer, don't feel that you're restricted in any way. I have had comments in the start saying, well, you can't teach my dog because my dog's big and you've only got little dogs. You can teach any dog. It doesn't matter if you've got big dogs or little dogs as a trainer. The concept's the same. It's the same principles. There's no restrictions on just teaching small dogs. In fact, I hardly teach any little dogs because in my area there's hardly anyone with little dogs, whereas Tasha, in her area, there's more little dogs, isn't there?
yeah,
Whereas where I am, it's more the sort of extra large bullies and things, and Frenchies and them sort of breeds around here. So I don't really do much with small dogs apart from my own. So it's far from the point when someone says, well, you don't know anything about big dogs. That's all I'm mainly specialising, So you can't can't judge anybody by that, and don't feel if you've got a small dog that you can't teach people with big dogs. You're more than capable, and the other way around, isn't it, Tasha?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, it's people's perceptions and ideologies from the media, and that's what it all comes down to. And like small dogs are handbag dogs, and you can't do anything with a small dog. Whereas I think I've been your biggest supporter and number one fan, and then like encouraged you to do some stuff because like we Sit Pretty, for example, with a wolf dog, it takes months to build that core strength up.
Yeah.
Whereas with Chihuahuas and small breeds, you get the natural waves, you get the natural Sit Pretties.
Yeah.
They offer loads of behaviors that you just need to capture. And from someone who is a large dog owner, from looking like the outside in, it's like, wow, you've got this dog who can do all of this stuff as a natural behavior because that's just how they are built, sort of thing. And I've got big dogs who need support or aren't capable of doing certain tricks and performing things, and people don't realize what they do actually have. Like when I sent you the NBA advert where he got a chihuahua on a basketball and he was doing backstalls and jumping through his arms and just crazy tricks. And there's so much of that that you'd never be able to get a large breed dog to do.
No.
And I pushed you to look more into fear-free techniques with handling, because with little dogs, it is a default to pick them up and carry them. Whereas in my house, you're not picking up anyone and carrying them. It's absolutely impossible. So you used to like carry them up the stairs and that, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a big piece of work on that, didn't we, Tasha, to be fair, to get, at the start, when you've only got a couple, it's okay to carry 2 up the stairs. But when you've got 15 and you're carrying them up the stairs, that's a big piece of work on a night and in the morning. So it took us about 8 months, didn't it?
Yeah.
To get every single dog up the stairs.
And down.
And well, we're still a couple to go down, to be fair, but we're getting there. But because they are older, and they've never, some of them are the older end, aren't they, Tasha? So they've never really had the stairs, so it takes a lot longer to build that confidence with the stairs. And they are teeny tiny. They range from sort of 1 kilogram to 3-4 kilograms, so they are super teeny tiny. Dolly, she will probably never go up the stairs because her like length is just not there. She's just too small, and that's something we've taught her to come at the side of us, and she turns and she knows that's when she gets picked up, and it's her choice to sort of shuffle in there, and she stands there and waits, and that's giving her choice. And I focus my dissertation on small dogs, and giving them choice and the difference between big dogs and little dogs, so to speak. And I learned a lot from doing that, from things that I probably made a lot of mistakes in the past. And I did make a lot of mistakes in the start. They should have always done the stairs, and should have always been doing everything that big dogs can do.
Yeah, but you didn't have that support, did you, when I first met you? You had no mentor, no support. The organization that you was with let you down massively.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, people can't help it. There's like, you can't do this whole nation of blame sort of thing and blame little dog owners because they are fed from the media. And dog trainers, behaviorists, were the ones who buy all the books and have no wallpaper and it's wall to wall of books, and we're the ones who do the courses because that's our job. But you don't expect the general public to do these things. Instead, they get their information from TV whilst they do whatever job that they do. Like you working at the hospital, you're not going to get access to dog training stuff unless you signed up to courses and all the rest of it. And like, we're going to discuss this more another night, but we've got a duty of care to educate, and that was it with you, because she was like, oh, my dog's really anxious, they could never do this, could never do that. And since doing everything, they've come out of their anxiety entirely. Even your most anxious dog, she's smashed her titles, she's so brave on walks, and she's got fabulous recall, and you never ever thought you'd be able to walk her.
No. So I do breeding as well. The first litter I had it was no fault of anything we did. It was just, unfortunately, they were all genetically anxious, like extremely anxious, aren't they, Tasha?
Yeah.
To the point where we struggled to get them outside of the house. They went in the garden and played fine, but when you took them away from the group or trying to do anything individual with them, they just fall apart. All of them now go out on their own, don't they, Tasha? And they all go on the field and they have a great time. They go off lead and they walk, and they're all so much more confident. And that's just pure perseverance. Small dogs do have some challenges, but they are what you make them. You know, a lot of small dogs are like they are because of owners and the mistakes. They're not giving the dogs choice, because they do pick them up a lot or put them on the knee and just nurse them. You know, the real dogs, you know, they can do their own things and they want to have choice, just like a big dog would. You've got to view it. If that dog was massive, would you be doing that now? No. And that's how you've got to look at it. And I've made lots of mistakes. My only problem sometimes is that when I do certain things and the equipment, and you realise that you've got a big dog and you're like, that's not going to work. So there is stuff like that I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. It's not going to be big enough. But because you don't have big dogs, but, you know, Chunk, who came to us, has learnt me a lot more about having a larger dog, because he's not massive, but he's a larger dog compared to the Chais. So he's learnt me a lot about dealing with larger dogs in the home as well, because as much as I've dealt with clients having big dogs in the home, I've never had a big dog in the home. So he's very different for me.
He's like a small medium.
Small medium, yeah.
Yeah, so it was quite a lot for you, adapted equipment and like realizing his potential and what he could do.
Yeah, it's very different.
But yeah, it's like when you do see people and they've got dogs that are small breeds that are being reactive, you know, they're being put in prams and things like that, and it's not a natural behavior for a dog. Dogs aren't meant to be in prams. I understand, of course, if they're elderly or disabled, but dogs aren't meant to be in prams and strollers. They're meant to be allowed to engage in the environment and sniff and that kind of thing. And what you see typically with these dogs is that because they're being manhandled against their will, because there's no consent involved, then they're trying to bite people or reacting because they're scared, because you know they're having all their dog behavior tools taken away from them and they're not allowed to be a dog. And again, that comes down to like how the media presents dogs. So if you look at films with I don't know, Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
You know, that like just the front cover of the film itself, and she's literally carrying the chihuahua. And those Hollywood type people who were photographed carrying small dogs, that's where people mostly got it from. And nobody's really corrected them. So you can't kind of have a pop at the general public with small dogs for carrying them around a baby in them, because that's what they've been led to believe is the care of these dogs. And then they don't understand it when the dogs are reactive.
Yeah.
But that's because nobody's educated them, sort of thing. Or you get the typical, my dog doesn't like big dogs. So it's your dog's fine, actually. It's you who doesn't like big dogs, projecting that onto your small dog and preventing them from being a dog, being able to communicate and play. Because whenever you put a small dog near a big dog, 9 times out of 10, the little dog is the one ragging the big dog about. 9 times out of 10. So not every single case, but most cases. And my dogs have only been attacked by a couple of big dogs. Mostly all the attacks have been small and toy breeds. And it sounds funny, but it's actually horrific for my dogs. And people seem to think that small dogs need coddling and carrying around, picking up, whereas your larger breeds, they think are hard and, you know, they're scary and aggressive. And what it actually comes down to is that big dogs are actually really timid and nervous, and small dogs do take advantage of it because they've been encouraged to repeat this behavior typically, in a lot of scenarios. So I'm not saying every owner either, because I've never generalised and blanket it, but in my area particularly, as Natalie said, it's mostly small breeds in my area. And my dogs are expected to be on lead, but the little dogs are always off lead, the owner's miles away, they're shouting them with no intent to actually recall them back. And by this point, my dogs have had their legs bitten or their tails pulled, and my dogs are really scared. And this is why, like, as professionals, we've got to change narrative and we've got a duty of care to educate. So I know some dog trainers won't even entertain training small dogs or don't think they're capable of anything. The attitude has got to change.
Mm.
You know, you can't pick and choose what dogs you work with, or rather, people do pick and choose what dogs to work with, but that's not professional behavior, and it doesn't get you any respect from your colleagues or clients because you're refusing to work with their dog based on its breed and its size. I mean, I've known one trainer who wouldn't touch staffies. I mean, that's just crazy. You're typing an entire breed and refusing them access to training because you don't like the breed. Whereas if you're dog training behaviorist, doesn't matter what breed walks through your door, you have to work with them.
Yeah.
It's not about picking and choosing. It's like being a teacher and I'm being assigned a class of 32 children and saying, well, I'm not working with that one because I don't like the look of them. And that's exactly what it it's the same thing. It's judging a person or an animal based solely on appearance, just because you might have known these breeds to have been like involved in a dog attack in the past, sort of thing. But it's not okay. We've got a duty of care to help every dog that we meet and empower them and educate the owners. I've had owners with small breeds come to me, and there might have been a few big dogs in the class, because I only have 6 people at a class anyway. Oh, my dog's gonna be really scared. And it's like, well, not really, because you're scared. And it generally turns out that they got bitten as a child and they're now 50 and still scared of larger dogs. And they project it onto their small dogs, and their small dogs are the ones that want to go straight in, rough and tumble, sniff the other one's butt, and the bigger dog's like, "Oh, get away from me!" Um, and that's generally what it's like. And when, like, the classic is the videos with you introducing Chunk to the Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single one of your Chihuahuas that did not bully him.
Yeah, they were
And
right in there.
yeah, they had a pop him straight off, and poor Chunk was just like, "Whoa!"
Looking around like, what the? Yeah. So introducing Chunk was quite a big thing in our house, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
we weren't sure if he was going to be staying, but we were going on holiday. So we had to introduce him to be able to go away. So me and Tasha spent a lot of time on Zoom introducing a dog at a time, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just bringing another dog in the garden, until they settled, starting with the ones that we knew that were going to be particularly difficult to interact. Chunk now plays with the little dogs all day, and there's no bother. He sits on the chair and watches over them. Like, got all these little dogs. And they get on really, really well. And to be fair, my dog, since introducing Chunk, my dogs have actually got better with other dogs on walks now, because it seems to have improved things when we go out. So there is benefits of having a larger dog in a small dog house. And the Chihuahua groups don't really help with a lot of these things, because there's a lot of Chihuahua groups, and a lot of them promote people having them in prams, saying that they can't be toilet trained. The last litter I had, they were toilet trained really, really young, and they've never had an accident. Them 2 out of that litter, I've never known them have an accident yet, touch wood. So if you do it young and you've got a really good program and they're all trained, we had a lot of success with that in the early days when we've had litters. So the groups are really bad for saying that they can't do stuff. There's a lot of pictures, edit things out there saying, what can your Chihuahua do? Just bark and snap. they can do a lot more than that, and the groups are like that. So when people get a small dog and they join these groups, that's what they're seeing, and that's all they think that the potential of that dog is, going in a pram, being carried around, you know.
Yeah, it's like that meme, isn't it, where it goes, there's no such thing as a bad dog breed chihuahuas. And it's not fair because it's putting a narrative onto these dogs. There's tons of toy breeds out there, and it's not just chihuahuas that can be problematic. And the other problem you've got is TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Vines and whatever else there is out there. And people think it's funny to push these dogs around, make them resource guard, fuss them without the dog's consent, and then the dog's growling and reacting, and putting these dogs in really crappy situations that you would never do to a large dog. You don't see it with spaniels or German shepherds, staffies, Weimaraners, Vizslas, collies, yeah, wolf dogs. You don't see it with any of those breeds. It's always the toy breeds you see being tortured on social media for clout, and then you'll find 13,000 people think it's absolutely hilarious. And there's all these comments like normalizing the behavior when really we need to be demonizing it to stop these people from getting views and clout. Because when we report it to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they don't care because that has generated them tons of views, which has generated them money. So they're not removing these videos. It's up to us to not engage with these videos and report them, not like them, not comment them, don't even watch them because you don't even want to give them a view. And you need to start thinking about, if that was my dog, how would I feel if someone was doing that to my dog? And it's not fair. And again, that's creating this narrative that small dogs, toy breeds are horrible, when actually the owners just got this dog to torture them on social media for 15 minutes of fame. And then that dog potentially, because the owner's not exactly going to be looking out for their welfare, this dog's potentially going to be euthanized because it's going to go to a rescue center at some point, or it's going to get thrown around Facebook and rehomed after rehomed after rehomed because it's got resourcing issues and aggression issues. And it's not fair to the dog. And then ultimately, the dog will end up being euthanized because humans have done this to the dog. It doesn't do the breed justice to the genetics, and it doesn't do that individual dog any favors either. It's just downright cruel. And it's up to us to change the narrative and educate people and not give these abusers any clout. Because if you think about it another way and you saw this being done to a child, you're reporting it and you're threatening to phone the police, and it's not okay. That's the worst parent in the world, and you're phoning social services. So why don't we have that same feeling towards social media? It's not okay to do it to a dog or any animal. And anyone who supports it is as bad as the person that's doing it, in my opinion. Because yes, I own large breeds, but I've got nothing against small breeds, and I don't think anyone can say that because I've trained all of yours virtually, haven't I?
Yeah.
Natalie, literally virtually, even before COVID and before Zoom was a thing. I've helped you train all of your dogs, and I train small dogs all the time. So I've got nothing against them, but I do believe that the owners and the dogs themselves aren't being done any favors or any justice, and it's not on. And again, I'm passionate about big dogs, but like the main thing is that small dogs are the ones that get a bad reputation because of the owners. And you can say that argument of, there's no such thing as a bad dog, it's down to the owner, but there is also genetics to take into consideration. So like with Dolly, you was really scared of her. She's bitten you quite a few times. And you really struggled with your confidence, but genetically she is built that way, and she's also terrier.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing we can do. And we know the times when it's worse. So when she's in seasons are a massive trigger. But we work around it and we found ways, haven't we? and it's just about finding ways around stuff. You know, terriers are very, very different. They're very different to chihuahuas because of that bit of terrier in her, you know, because I've got the dad's very, very placid. But yeah, that terrier side does come out sometimes. We've had a few little snaps. But I was getting scared of her to the point where I was worried about going near her. So my energy wasn't helping. We had to just have a fresh start and be like, right, we're not scared of her anymore. We're going for it. We're doing it. And we've had a really good bond since then. And she's great. Like she walks off lead everywhere. You can walk around a full car boot and she'll just stay at the side of you. She's fabulous in terms of the way that she is and her obedience skills. People are just like when you're walking around with her, and that's a nice feeling, because people are like, wow, look at a little dog, and they just see these little legs like walking at the back of you. So it's a nice feeling, but it's taking a lot of work, and sometimes when it takes a bit more work, it's more worth it. Yeah, I think people need to remember that it's not always easy, and sometimes it pays. You get a better reward in the end if you've had to work harder for it.
Her mum was the same though, wasn't she?
Yeah,
so that's how we know it's genetic.
Yeah.
And a lot of her issues came down to consent. So she was literally communicating that she was going to give you consent as to when she could be touched and when things could be done with her and when she wanted to train, when she wanted to engage. And that's all she was saying.
Yeah.
But it came across as very aggressive and upsetting to you, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't had much. I mean, she's in season now, so she's been a little bit like that. But up until this point, she's been really, really good the last few months, and we've not had any type of problems like that because she's got a lot more choice in life now. But that's come with other issues. So she has got some dental issues because we've struggled to get in her mouth, get near her mouth and look at her teeth. So that's another challenge that we've come up against now, because she's not let us do that in the past, and now we've got a bit of a problem. Yeah, and everybody has problems. There's no point in hiding it. Everyone's got issues, so it's about being honest about it and just addressing it as it comes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that as well. Like, listening to the dog's body language is the first thing that you do. Because when people say, oh, well, my dog just lets me carry them everywhere and they don't really do anything and they just lay there, you've completely shut down that dog. You flooded them to a point where they've given up. And it's really sad to see. There's no communication, absolutely nothing, because this dog is just shut down, withdrawn, it's not had a chance to engage in life. And even so far as like having a small dog, because it suits your lifestyle or your research looking into it, you also need to make a decision. So you might find a breeder that you think is really, really good. Again, the general public can't be blamed for that because there's no education out there really about puppy farms and backyard breeders. It's something that's tossed around social media but not really ever explained. And there are breeders out there that don't do toilet training, crate training, that don't treat the dog how they deserve to be treated, and it can cause massive problems. And most of the small dogs that I deal with, that is exactly what happens. So an elderly couple who had a chihuahua because they wanted a dog, but they wanted a dog that they could manage because it was both elderly and frail. And she was petrified of everything. She was miserable, not because of the owners, but because the breeders who had her decided it was okay to treat her like a big dog and a puppy. So they was trying to, like, for want of a better word, they was basically pretend kicking them, and the chihuahuas would bite their feet because that's a response to protecting themselves. And yeah, the first 10 weeks of these puppies' lives, they went through absolute hell with the breeders, and they didn't learn how to live. They were taken away from the mum too soon. So they wasn't taught how to behave from mum, like dog behavior. And she was an absolute raging mess when I first met her. They couldn't walk her. They couldn't do anything with her. She'd hide behind the sofa all the time. She was purely an anxious little boy, bless her. And if they tried to like feed her or get her out and there's somebody around, she'd bite them. But she was biting as a form of communication that she was frightened. Um, Luckily, she did a complete 360 and she was absolutely fabulous. And I took Django around when he was a puppy, and she just fell in love straight away. And it was like the first time she'd ever seen a dog since leaving the breeders. And it was just so sad because obviously these elderly people didn't have friends with dogs, and lived on a cul-de-sac that was full of other elderly people, and they got cats. So they didn't really have a chance to go and socialize or mix or take her for a walk because she couldn't go for a walk. She was far too frightened to go for a walk. Um, and that's the other thing that we've got to change as well. Like socialization is not what people have been told it is and been led to believe for all these years. Like there's that really good infographic going around at the moment, isn't it, about what socialization is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
But just expecting dogs to socialize and play with each other, or not all humans like each other, and all we're doing by forcing a dog to go to a puppy party or a socialization class is flooding the dog, taking choice away, and putting human ideologies onto the dog. You're forcing them to go play with the dogs, and you're forcing your dogs into shutdown, fear, anxiety, and then wondering why you end up with a 6-month-old reactive dog because by the time the hormones kick in, that cortisol's just sky high. Because you had to actually remove a client from one of your classes, didn't you?
Yeah.
Chihuahua.
Yeah. So it classes out for everybody. And we have to accept that, it's like we don't all like going to parties. We don't all like socializing. Some of us like be at home and just be with one person. And that's fine. And we have to remember that dogs are also the same. Not all dogs are suitable for classes. And if that's too much for that dog, then, we can't push them because you just make the behavior even worse. As much as people want to push the dogs, it's difficult, isn't it? Because when you pick your dog, you don't always know what sort of personality that you've got an idea, but you don't know exactly how they're going to pan out. So it's like, some of Bella, she'll walk miles and miles, but I've got others that aren't so keen on doing massive walks. So if I was somebody who wanted to go walking every weekend and I'd got the wrong puppy that didn't like walking, I'm going to force it to walk because that's my lifestyle. And that's the problem with certain things, isn't it, Tasha, and breeding? You don't always get the puppy that fits with your lifestyle. Somebody might get a puppy and they want to go to the pub with it every weekend and socialise and do go to class every weekend, but that dog, they might end up with a puppy that's super anxious, that doesn't like people, that doesn't like other dogs, and that individual that's got that dog has to accept that, or accept that this is not the right home.
Yeah.
So we can't push them. We cannot push them. Would you, if you had a child that was anxious, would you push them to go do stuff and it completely flood them into going to socialization things if they were really, really stressed out by it? You wouldn't. So why should we do it to dogs?
Exactly. And it's like when we first met, you was doing up until just before COVID hit, puppy socialization.
Yeah.
And then I'd have clients giving me grief and a hard time because they're like, "Oh, I want to come to the puppy party on a Saturday evening." I'm like, "It's not a puppy party." They're like, "Yeah, but it's socialization because it's a puppy class." I'm like, well, it is, but it's actually the proper way of socializing, and you're going to be doing training. And it's not actually about your puppy having a free for all and beating each other up and sitting there for an hour taking photos. And I lost so many potential clients because they didn't want to train that way.
Yeah.
And then, sorry.
No, it's my similar thing, and then because I did some very structured training puppy things, like puppy socialization, and they came and they was on lead for the majority of the session, and they did not get it at all. They were like, "What? We're letting them all off." They came through the door and was like, "We're letting them off now." No, you're not letting them off. you're teaching them to be controlled around other dogs first. They do 3 seconds a me, we come back out, and then there's it's not a free for all. We're doing training. That's not what it's about. And people just want to go to parties and let the dogs off, don't they, Sasha?
Yeah. And yeah, and then these people end up coming back to me, and their dog will be 6 months to a year old, and the dog's reactive because they went somewhere else where it's a puppy party. The vets are renowned for it, or other dog trainers who want to make quite a bit of money on socialization. The people realize that they messed up, and now their dog at a very young age is reactive because it's overexposed, and it's a thing. Dogs can be overexposed to stimuli, i.e., other dogs. And I've always been very different anyway, because when I was being mentored, I was working with actual working dogs, so dogs that was going to be sent off to the police and the security guards, and those kind of places. And it was always with the puppies. They go to an industrial estate, and whether they're carried round or walked for a minute or 2 minutes, you take them to the industrial estate to listen to the banging of the shutters and the doors and the traffic and the forklifts. And you try to get the puppy to engage with you around these strange noises. You take them to car parks, and you take them to go people watch, but you never, ever, ever did a free for all with puppies, ever, never with working dogs. Because these dogs, and it sounds silly, but a lot of people's lives depends on these dogs. They're much more astute and needed than maybe humans, because dogs literally do save people's lives. And like Flynn, who got stabbed, these dogs have got a very critical job and a role. And you'll never see a working dog like that being in a puppy party or anything like that. Because socialization, it is all about exposing them to the environment and traffic. So you don't end up with a 6-month-old border collie that's car chasing and pulling you into the road, because they went to puppy parties every week, but they never got exposed to cars, and then now you've got a massive problem. And it is things like that to be considerate of. And to me, there's nothing nicer than seeing a dog who's playing in the park but got a really nice recall. And not floating my own boat, but my dogs have got a brilliant recall. I've got videos of it, so I'm not just talking the talk and just saying that my dogs have got a brilliant recall. My dogs stay with me. When there's other dogs about, especially, like, they'll come and hide behind me. And because of the hiding behind me, it's been captured and now put on cue, because it wasn't like hiding as in fear. I'm taking myself out of the situation because I could end up being very anxious. And then it was reinforcing them to make it a positive experience and not allowing fear to, take over their lives. And every time I've seen another dog to be scared, but it's okay to be aloof, and it's okay to build your own space and distance. But I don't want them to be scared. And when I see other people with a dog who's walking and their dog has no interest in coming over to your dog and pounding the head in, jumping on the back, I do a little cheer inside, and I'm like, oh, that's so brilliant. I'm so happy to see that. Because like Claire Staines' dog Flea, a young dog went bounding over to him and massively damaged his back. Just from pouncing on him. And this is the other side of the scale as well. It's when dogs go to puppy parties and are overly socialized, heavily socialized, but they're not taught how to be, like Natalie said, controlled around other dogs and be able to focus on the owners. Other dogs are injured, and dogs don't have to just bite to injure another dog. Like, literally jumping on an older dog's back, it inflicted a lot of pain. And it's sad to see an older dog struggling because a young dog jumped on him. And it's not the dog's fault, it's because they haven't been educated. And then you can't really say it's the owner's fault, because if they went to training, did the trainer educate them? Because there's some of us who are like die hard when it comes to classes and structure. And then there are some who just do socialization classes, and it's just a bit of extra cash sort of thing. But those of us that are serious about it, and they're structured, we do have the smaller classes because there's not 40 people clamoring at the door to come because it's not a puppy party.
Yeah.
And if you do see 40 dogs in a class, in the nicest possible way, it becomes more about money rather than actual structure, and seeing that dog as an individual, because there's no way that in 1 hour you're going to be training and educating 40 dogs, 40 owners, and meeting every single one of those dogs needs an individual.
No.
It's just not happening, is it?
No. Because I have really small classes as well, and anything above 6, is just you can't give them the attention that they need, and it's just not good quality. Because there's too much going on, not only for the trainer but for the other people in the class as well. It's too much of an intense environment. It's just them classes are small for a reason, and they're the good trainers. Massive classes indicate people just wanting money, and that is not what it's about at all. It's about the welfare of the dogs.
Yeah, and then it's always making a point as well, like if you do have mixed classes, because you can't just do a toy breed class, it's impossible. And I have been asked to do those, but like you're the only client with a toy breeds. It's like it's not actually viable to do a class, because you don't have the distractions and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's not about money, but it's about the owner and the dog getting the best out of the class. And if you're just in a room where there's no distractions, you're not going to get anything out of it. But when you do have larger puppies come, and then you've got a toy breed that's coming, you've got a duty of care to keep everybody safe. It's not just the Spockers and the puppy Labradors that are crazy. Little dog puppies do tend to bark and have a go and give warning shots to larger breed puppies. And you've got a duty of care to make sure every puppy's safe in the class, and that everyone's under control as well. Because there would be nothing worse than a puppy being absolutely terrified in a class.
Yeah, and trainers need to be prepared to be able to teach any size of dog, because I've been to classes with my own without anybody knowing that I do anything to do with dog training, and I've been sat on a chair, just sit there and just do this exercise, and it's heartbreaking because nobody wants to feel like that. You need to make sure everybody in that class feels part of it, and if you have to adapt the training, then so be it, because you will have to adapt certain things for different breeds and the way that we do stuff.
Well, you attended a Zoom class, didn't you, with Tricks, as soon as lockdown happened, pretty much, and you was just really upset when you came off.
Yeah, and it's hard. So I've experienced it online and in online and in person. Many years ago when I'd only just started dog training, I've been to a few classes with mine and been sat in a corner, not being able to take part because they're like, just sit there. And it's horrible. You want everyone to be included. So now I make a point to make sure that everybody's included in class, because I wouldn't want anyone to feel like that. So if you're a trainer and you've not had experience in a certain breed, go out there and try and find a friend or somebody and have a go, because it's slightly different with different breeds, isn't it, Tasha? So you've got to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there, offer a free session for somebody with a small dog to educate yourself and get to know how they do certain things, because the mechanics of it is very, very different in some respects with certain little breeds. And it's very different from if you've got a class and you've got a teeny tiny dog and you've got a massive dog in the corner. They can be doing very, very different things to do the same end result. So it's just about adapting, being able to adapt your training.
And if you're not sure, you've got no experience with small breeds or vice versa, go and shadow somebody.
Yeah.
And like I said last night with the locals and whatever, drop the competition. If you don't like a dog training because their ethics don't match up and they're a compulsion, based or balanced, or you know that that person's got no qualifications and they're just in it for the money, that's fair enough. But you will find a decent dog trainer with a decent organization to go and shadow and get experience from, or refer on. There isn't enough of that going on. And trainers letting clients down because they just don't refer on. Or they say, well, I can't train that dog. That's it. And they don't refer on. So there's 4 clients left then.
Yeah.
And they, the general public do tar us all with the same brush. And I think we're all awful. And I've had no end of it here where they've been to bad trainers or people, for want of a better word, impersonating trainers, and then they've left it for months or years before then trying again because they literally cannot cope with the dog anymore. And I get spoken to like absolute crap. They're bullshitting me straight up, and they're forceful and they're dictatorial, and that's literally because they've had a bad experience and they think that they're putting me in my place before they even work with me. And all it does is make me anxious because that's the type of person I am. But then when they actually meet me and they talk to me, they're like, I'm so sorry for the way that I spoke to you because I realized that you're not like that. But we're all colleagues, whether we like it or not. I don't know why people don't like it. But as colleagues, like if we worked in the same building together, we have to be nice to each other and respectful. So I don't get why we can't do it as a dog industry and be supportive of each other. Even as a common courtesy, that kind of thing. Because the more that we do that, the more we can educate others. Even if you're not a mentor, you've got no intentions of being a mentor, we can still educate others and draw on from other people's experiences.
Definitely.
Like I'm not Natalie's mentor, and I've learned loads from you about little dogs, and even all the experience of the hours that I put into training you and your dogs, that's given me so much more to my toolbox. And the other people that I mentor, I get experience from them and I learn things from them. And we shouldn't be looking down at each other or excluding each other because we might be in competition. It's just absolutely ridiculous because at the end of the day, we're all here for the dogs and the owners, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And we do have a duty of care to change the narrative about little dogs. And it's not the 90s anymore. And it's not the early 2000s. And for 20 years, small dogs have been treated like rubbish. And we've got to change it. Before that, I'm always told that it was a German Shepherd, a Doberman, and the Rottweilers that got all the blame for everything. And then it was Staffies. And now it's slowly seeping into small dogs, and rescues are full of small breed dogs. But as professionals, we've got the power to change it.
Yeah.
And we've got the power to change ideologies and beliefs about small dogs. Because your dogs are wicked.
Yeah. Well, they have the moments, don't they? Totally are.
Well, yeah, all dogs do, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you live with them. And it's okay, to be honest, that not everything's always rose. It's not always rosy, is it, Tasha? And I think trainers need to be a bit more transparent because it's not always perfect. Yeah, and there's a lot of people always like, well, my dog can do this and it can do that and it's fabulous. It won't be. It will have done something at some point and it will have been naughty and it will have done so, they've all done something. Yeah, no dog is perfect. And I think we need to be honest about stuff and show openly this is what's happening so people can learn by stuff that's happening to us, because you've done that, haven't you, Tasha? You know certain things, you've helped other people by saying this is what problem I'm having and this is how I've got through it, and that's helped so many people just because a trainer's been honest about an experience that they're having.
I've always been transparent, always. And then when people turn around to me and say that they lie about being fully booked in their classes or one-to-ones and stuff, I'm like, why would you even do that? Like, literally made no sense to me at all, did it? To me it was just crazy. And like when I was really going through imposter syndrome, a few years ago, and because before, when I was working with working dogs and I was self-employed, like I didn't really know of anyone. It was like 2018 when Ruby adopted me, and then suddenly I had all these people clamoring to be Facebook friends, and all I was seeing was like border collies, Labradors, Pomeranians, Chihuahuas, all these dogs doing epic things. And then I've got a Spaniel Cross who is epic and walks off lead everywhere, and he's amazing. But we didn't do sports, so I wasn't good enough because we didn't do sports. And then I got my wolf dog, and we wasn't good enough because she wasn't one of these pastoral breeds sort of thing. And I really struggled for a long time. And then someone told me, with Facebook and Instagram, that photo is 0.01 seconds. So people might be making out that they've got a wonderful dog and they're doing awesome in sports and stuff. And the realization when you start talking to these people is actually that's not the case at all. And same with videos. And like I used to put people up on big pedestals and think I was trash, literally. And then I'd meet them at conferences and workshops and stuff, and I was like, what? Like my dogs are well behaved better than theirs. And I couldn't believe it. And I say to you when I was like, their dogs react like literally their dogs react. Oh, I don't believe this. And I put people up on pedestals because there's very clever videos and very clever photos. And then because I've always just been honest about my training and transparent, I kind of felt like the odd one out. But then something shifted the last year or so, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And now people seem to like transparency and
being honest.
Yeah, and people respect you a lot more for it. And
yeah, I think so. I think the more honest you are, the more respect people have for you.
Yeah, because it was just
your clients can have more respect for you as well.
Oh yeah,
you can be like, oh, they can actually relate to you then.
Yeah,
and you can say, I've had this problem. Look, this has happened to me. Can't just stand there and be like, my dog's perfect.
Yeah,
they're not going to open up to you.
No,
they are not going to then tell you their problems because they're like, well, better not say, because it's like the good old, and then they say, dog sleeps on the bed, and they give you that look like it's okay. Like that, everything, people think that they get judged. And it's little things like that, and they literally stand there like, I let him sleep on the bed. I'm like, yeah, and so, and it's little things, isn't it? And just like, you want them to be open and talk to you.
Yeah.
And if they're worried about telling you that the dog sleeps on the bed, then there's bigger issues there, because you need them to be open with you, otherwise you can't help them.
Yeah.
So by saying to them, I've had a similar problem, my dog did this, then they're like, oh really? Well, this is what's happening. Sometimes you have to give a little to get a bit back, and sometimes you have to be open with them for them to say, right, this is what's actually happening here.
Yeah, because my clients have always been the ones to respect me for being open and honest, because we're on the same page. And then they took me down off this pedestal because it was always like, oh, my dog does this, and I bet your dogs are perfect. It's like, no, way far from it. My dogs are not perfect. Like, and if you can see this swollen bit here, yeah, Zombie nothing me before this conference. So, my dogs are not perfect at all, but I've got nothing to hide.
No.
It's not a domestic abuse situation. Zombie's crazy, thinks he's a puppy in an adult body, and just happened to get overexcited and nut me. It's just one of those things. But we've got to get on the same page as our clients, to be honest with you, because we'll get more respect from them and they're more likely to recommend us.
Yeah.
And the same for your colleagues as well. Colleagues need to see it, because imposter syndrome is massive, and burnout is massive, and compassion fatigue is massive. And I'm sure there's more, but like we lost Dr. Sophia Yin, and I'm pretty sure if there'd been more support in place for her, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, because I know what she did by taking her own life affects a lot of people's lives. But I'm sure there's more dog trainers out there that we just don't know of, who's done exactly the same thing, who just needed some extra support. And burnout does push you to the point of feeling very, very depressed and suicidal, and like there's no way out. Whereas if we looked after each other and was more honest and stopped turning everything into a competition, and stopped lying, we do so much better for everyone, our colleagues, our clients, potential colleagues, you know, and we just got to be more transparent and honest with everybody.
Definitely.
And like say, whether you got a big dog, a small dog, it doesn't matter. You can't keep thinking that your dog's not capable of doing X, Y, Z. Like I said to you last week, it's all in your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Because you still get down now, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Massively. Massively. And it's about when you're looking at other people and what they're doing. And even we suffer with that. We all suffer with that to some degree. And it's probably never going to go away, to be honest. And it'll come in waves for most trainers, because there's always somebody doing something different, always somebody doing something better. Yeah. But behind closed doors, is it really better? Is what's really going on? You know, that's what you've got to look through as well, and just concentrate on yourself. Because it's easy to get sucked into Facebook videos and YouTube and think, oh my God, look what they're doing with their dog. It's so easy to get sucked into that and be worried about what you're doing. Just worry about yourself. As long as you're achieving something, that's all that matters. And if it makes you happy, then great. You know, just focus on you and your dog and what you want to achieve out of them, not worrying about Sheila who's doing whatever else, because it doesn't really matter, because it's regardless. She's not looking at you. So just get on with what you're doing.
I've trained you so well.
Well, I did used to eat me up. And I'll be honest about that, and it does get me some days. It really does.
It got you last week, didn't it?
Yeah, gets
With
me all
a
the time.
trick video, and you're like, oh, they're just so good, they're amazing. It's like, yeah, but so are you, but you've got to set aside the time to train your dogs and to do the same as what they're doing and be enthusiastic about it. But it's human nature to go through periods of feeling like, I don't feel good enough to train. I can't train today, and make excuses up, because even if it's not about training dogs, we all make excuses to duck something and procrastinate, because it's human nature.
Yeah, and that's like that with anything.
Mm.
So we've got a couple of minutes, Tasha. We're nearly at the hour.
That's all right. But yeah, so if people want to reach out and talk to either of us about big dogs or small dogs, you're more than welcome to. Check out Natalie's page, which is
NK9 dog training and behaviour. I always forget
on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then you can check out my videos on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And I've got nothing to hide, so you're not going to see wonderful behaviors and that kind of thing. You're going to see, well, because I do instructional videos,
Yeah.
you're going to see start to finish of what a behavior looks like. And I draw on the strength of each dog. So when I begin to teach behavior, I teach it with the dog who's least confident and work it up to the dog who can do the finished behavior confidently. You know, I don't want people to think, well, my dogs are just magic. I want you to see that, you know, I purposely start with the first dog that I work with in the video, because they're the least confident with the behavior. Everyone's got to start somewhere. And even if they do something confidently, the next behavior they might not be so confident with. And you've got to stop putting dog trainers on pedestals. It doesn't matter who they are, how big a following they've got. You've got to stop putting people on pedestals and start focusing on your dog and the training that you can do with your dog and your relationship and bond. And it doesn't matter who's watching. It doesn't matter if you put a video up on Facebook and it wasn't matching, you know, the most popular trainer in the UK, because nobody really gives a crap at the end of the day. And that's what it's all about. And I respect people more for the bond that they've got with their dog and the relationship that they've got with their dog, not for a fancy 5-minute video you took on Facebook and don't show us the rest of your life with the dog. You know, because even if you can do tricks and whatever, or he'll work to music, I want to know what the rest of your relationship's like. You know, what's it like taking your dog for a walk?
Yeah.
Do you need any help? And start gatekeeping your problems and start speaking out and saying, you know what, I'm really struggling, because there is no shame in it whatsoever. And if you speak out, you'll get help.
Yeah.
And your bond and your life will only improve.
Yeah. If you don't speak out, you can't get help. So
Well,
put yourselves out there. So we'll put the recording in, and we'll put the links to the pages and stuff in Work with Tasha.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. And like I say, if you've got any questions or you just need a moan or anything, just reach out to either of us.
Yeah, we're here.
It's not a problem.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.